Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about one big indicator that I use all the time to search for rental housing and areas that I want to buy. So there's lots of indicators, but one that you should be definitely watching, especially now, is what they call the Housing Opportunity Index, or HOI. So in my mind, the Housing Opportunity Index doesn't take it quite so far, but that's what I'm going to do for you now so you can see how I use this data and use it for my investing criteria. So what is the Housing Opportunity Index? Well, it started with the National Association of Home Builders, which is obviously the cost of housing, and Wells Fargo, because of course they are lenders. So when you blend these two, it's a great indicator of where people are in certain markets. So this index for a given area is defined as the share of homes sold in that area that would have been affordable to a family earning a local median income based on a standard mortgage underwriting criteria, which we'll talk about in a minute. So therefore, there are really two major components: income and housing costs, and that's median income and housing costs for a certain area. So one of the reasons I really like this index is because it covers 240 metro housing areas. So it's very good data across the United States. It's not completely comprehensive, but it's very good and covers 240 areas. But there's one big flaw in this indicator, and that is, of course, interest rates, which isn't even addressed here. So let's talk about that next. So the chart on the left here from the St. Louis Fed is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the US, and you can see it's bounced all over from the 70s all the way through 2022. What I want to bring your attention to is this little area right here at the end that hardly looks like anything, but if you take a look at it, the way median home prices have gone up, it's significant. So the chart on the right is blown up and represents the last 2 years, and it's also the 30-rate fixed rate mortgage. The average, as you can see, it's really started to spike here, and the Fed, of course, has met twice in the last 4 months and raise these rates another 0.75%. So why is this important? Because as you start to look at the rising house prices of homes sold, and you start to see how interest rates affect them from a mortgage standpoint, then the Housing Opportunity Index spreads become even worse for homeowners, therefore pushing many of these people into rentals. So next I'm going to show you exactly how I use this information to go find properties. But before I do that, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bells just to get my numbers up just a little. And thanks, guys. So let's dig in a little more specific so you can see exactly how this data is used before I show you the chart. So the National Association of Home Builders assumed that a family can afford to spend up to 28% of its gross annual income on housing. This is important. As you guys know, this percentage can change from person to person, but we have to assume something so you can track the data accurately year over year. Then you take that share of the median income and you divide that by 12 to arrive to a monthly figure. So let's assume for a moment that a family's annual gross income is $100,000. 28% of that is $28,000 divided by 12, which is $2,333 for their mortgage. The second calculator are housing costs, and it takes into consideration the price of homes and the interest rate. So the prices of a new and existing homes sold are collected from the actual court records from CoreLogic, a data and analytics company. So this Housing Opportunity Index takes the price of existing and new homes and the average mortgage payment that you would have based on the interest rate and looks at it as it's compared to the median income for a family, and of course what they can afford on a monthly basis. So when I was researching this video, I had to laugh at the last part of this because it says today's mortgage rates are the lowest they have ever been and have been a huge impact on housing affordability. And I kept this in here so you could see that that was once the case, but not anymore. As these rates go up, affordability goes down and it pushes more people into rental housing. So now let's look at the chart. As you can see from going back to just 2012, so just 10 years ago, you can kind of see the median sales price. Now, of course, this is across the U.S., but you can see how they've grown over that period of time, over that 10-year period of time. But the Housing Opportunity Index has steadily gone down, and the gap has gotten wider and wider and wider. One thing this chart does not reflect, of course, is the second quarter of 2022, because we're still in the middle of it. So what does all this mean, and why is it important? So as I take a look at these different cities, so on the left here are the 10 most affordable metro areas by using the Housing Opportunity Index. And to the right are the 10 least affordable metro areas by using the Housing Opportunity Index. So you as a landlord want to be buying properties in this category over here, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to find housing that's the highest price. Especially now with these interest rates, the mortgages are going to be even more. What you're trying to do is find the biggest gap between the mortgage and the rent. For example, if the mortgages over here are $5,000 or $6,000 a month, let's say, and the rents are $2,000, then that would be $3,000 to $4,000 gap between rental and mortgage. Over here, the rents might be, let's say, $1,000, but the mortgages would be closer to $2,000. So over here, there's a $1,000 gap between rental and mortgage. And over here, you can have a $3,000 or $4,000 gap between rental and mortgage. So as a landlord, I'm trying to focus on these areas here, because from a turnover standpoint, you want as many people to stay in your rental long term to create stability from a cash flow standpoint if you're looking at it from a landlord standpoint. From a renter standpoint, you're obviously looking over here because you're trying to spend as little as you can on rent. So this is one of the little secrets that you've got from me on how I take a look at these individual markets. These mortgages are growing even higher than the rent growth that we're seeing in many of those metro areas. Now with these rising interest rates, as pointed out earlier, then these mortgage payments are actually becoming bigger and bigger, driving a bigger gap between the renter and the mortgage payment. Now that is happening on both sides of the equation, but the point is you want to pay attention to that. So the next chart that you should be looking at for yourself would be to take a look at average rents in these areas and compare them with the mortgages. So that will give you the true gap by submarket. So lastly, as you can imagine, the least affordable metro areas are the more stable rental markets from a landlord standpoint. So these folks will have a harder time because they have to qualify to buy these homes, which are more expensive and of course have higher mortgage payments. And these interest rates are making it even worse for these renters that live in these markets. So as always, I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bells, and we'll see you next time.